The quantum slip drive's catastrophic malfunction caught everyone by surprise, but no one more so than Captain Elena Rodriguez. One moment, they were conducting a routine deep space exploration mission at the edge of known human-mapped space. The next, they were surrounded by a sea of alien vessels that looked equally shocked by their sudden appearance. "RIA, status report," Elena commanded. Her voice steadied despite the surreal scene unfolding through the ship's panoramic view screen. The ship's AI responded with clinical precision. Quantum slip drive experienced a phase variance of 0.003 microns. Resultant spatial displacement, approximately 127 light-years from previous coordinates. Surrounding vessel count, 237 distinct signatures. Preliminary analysis suggests we've emerged in the Andromeda Taw trade corridor. Chief Engineer Marcus Chen's fingers flew across his holographic interface, a sheen of nervous sweat coating his forehead. "Captain, the drive's quantum entanglement is completely destabilized. We're essentially a cork-botting in an alien ocean right now." Elena allowed herself a sardonic smile. Their experimental quantum slip drive had always been more theoretical than practical, a testament to human scientific ambition. Designed to fold space through quantum manipulation, it was supposed to be the next great leap in interstellar travel. Instead, it had just become the most spectacular navigation error in human exploration history. The alien ships surrounding them represented a menagerie of technological marvel and biological diversity that human xenobiologists would have killed to study. Massive crystalline vessels with organic-looking propulsion systems sat alongside geometric metal constructs that seemed to defy conventional physics. Holographic communication arrays flickered between ships, creating a web of light that danced around the ISS horizon like nervous fireflies. "No response to our standard communication protocols," reported Lieutenant Aisha Kamathi from the communications station. They're just staring at us." As if on cue, a massive vessel to the port side. Its hull, a shifting iridescent surface that seemed to breathe, began to move. Tiny pinpricks of light across its surface suggested complex sensor arrays all focused directly on the human ship. Aria's voice cut through the tension. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple targeting systems coming online across the alien fleet. Probability of hostile intent, 72.6%. Marcus muttered under his breath. "Great. First contact, and we're about to get blasted." But Elena Rodriguez was not about to let panic dictate their response. A veteran of multiple deep space missions and survivor of 3 near-catastrophic exploration incidents, she had developed a reputation for unflappable decision-making. "Passive shields," she ordered. "Full spectrum communication attempt. Let's show them we're not here to cause trouble." The ship's communication array began cycling through multiple frequency bands, broadcasting a standard scientific exploration greeting developed by the Interstellar Diplomatic Corps. It was a message of peace, curiosity, and peaceful exploration, translated into over 247 known alien communication formats. What happened next was anything but standard. A small merchant vessel, its hull decorated with what appeared to be bioluminescent patterns, suddenly jerked sideways. Whether from fear, surprise, or some incomprehensible alien reflex, it fired what was presumably a warning shot. The energy pulse, meant to be a deterrent, struck the horizon's experimental adaptive shield. Instead of dissipating, the energy was momentarily absorbed, then reflected back in a spectacular display of prismatic light that erupted across the trade corridor. For a moment, everything stopped. "Oops," Ariah said, and if an AI could sound both clinical and mildly apologetic, this was that moment. The light show that followed was breathtaking. Cascading waves of color refracted through the surrounding ships, turning the cold darkness of space into a canvas of impossible beauty. What was meant to be a potentially aggressive moment became something else entirely, an inadvertent work of art that left every surrounding vessel momentarily stunned. Captain Rodriguez couldn't help but laugh. "Well," she said to her bewildered crew, I guess we've made an entrance. The crystal spires of Nexus Prime pulsed with a frantic rhythm, their normally serene communication networks now a chaotic storm of data and speculation. Zorak, a senior information broker of the Triloxian species, felt the first tremors of what would become the most significant data event in galactic history. "Repeat that transmission," Zorak demanded, mandibles clicking with agitation. The junior communication analyst, a young Viridian named Kex, looked like he might dissolve from pure nervous energy. "A single vessel," Kex stammered, his translucent skin flickering through multiple shades of anxiety. "Human origin. Spontaneous arrival in the Andromeda Tau corridor, completely outside all known transit protocols." Zarek's complex sensory tendrils spread out, interfacing directly with the massive data streams surrounding them. What should have been a routine information assessment was transforming into something unprecedented. The initial report was maddeningly sparse, just a few lines of technical data, a series of sensor readings, and a grainy image of a sleek metallic vessel that looked both primitive and impossibly advanced. Transmission log, partial decrypt. Source, Merchant Vessel Luminara 9. Time Index, 2749367 Galactic Standard. Status, unverified emergency transmission. Vessel appeared from nowhere. Quantum signature unknown. Defensive capabilities beyond current threat matrices. Recommend immediate quarantine. The transmission cut off abruptly. In the vast communication hub, hundreds of species communication networks began to light up. What began as a whisper quickly became a roar. The Galactic Information Exchange, a system designed to process and distribute knowledge across thousands of civilizations, started to buckle under the weight of speculation, fear, and raw curiosity. Kex's supervisor, a veteran communications director named Frill, approached with calculated calm. "Show me everything," he commanded. The junior analyst pulled up a holographic display. The human ship looked almost disappointingly ordinary, if ordinary could describe a vessel that had apparently violated every known law of spatial transit. Its hull was a matte gray, with subtle geometric patterns that seemed to shift subtly when viewed from different angles. "The translation matrix is struggling," Kex explained, pointing to a series of flickering symbols. "Their communication protocols don't match any known galactic standard. It's like they're not even trying to conform." Vrill's compound eyes narrowed. "That's impossible. Every spacefaring civilization adapts to standard communication protocols. It's how we maintain galactic stability." But the data didn't lie. The human transmission was simultaneously crude and sophisticated, like watching a child solve a complex mathematical problem using a stick in the sand. Meanwhile, on the other side of the communication hub, information brokers began placing astronomical bets. What was this human vessel? A scout? An invasion force? A massive technological mistake? Zarek intercepted a private communication channel, something only the most skilled information traders could accomplish. The message was encrypted, but not beyond their capabilities. Encrypted communication, partial decode, unprecedented quantum variance. Drive technology suggests capabilities beyond current galactic models. Recommend immediate. The message fragmented, leaving more questions than answers. In the next communication hub over, a diplomatic translation team was experiencing a full-scale meltdown. The human technical manual they were attempting to decode seemed to be simultaneously a scientific document, a maintenance guide, and what appeared to be a recipe for something called coffee, a substance that defied all known nutritional classifications. "It's a war plan," declared Ambassador Krelax of the Hexagonal Concordance, misinterpreting a diagram of the ship's waste recycling system. "They're mapping our entire civilization through a document about waste management." 3 separate alien defense ministries went into emergency preparedness mode. Zarek watched the information cascade with a mixture of professional excitement and genuine terror. In hundreds of thousands of years of galactic communication, nothing had ever spread so quickly, so chaotically. One human ship, a single, seemingly innocuous vessel, and the entire information network of the galaxy was transforming before their eyes. Fascinating, Zarok muttered, tendrils dancing across communication interfaces. Absolutely fascinating. The grand chamber of the Galactic Conclave looked less like a diplomatic meeting and more like a pressure cooker about to explode. Ambassador Krelax of the Hexagonal Concordance stood at the center, all 6 arms moving in an elaborate dance of diplomatic posturing that would have been beautiful if it weren't so absolutely terrifying. Colleagues, Krelax began, each limb articulating a different emotional subtext. We face an unprecedented threat. A single human vessel has appeared in the Andromeda Tau corridor, and our preliminary intelligence suggests catastrophic potential. To his left, Ambassador Zixtera of the Crystalline Collective remained unnervingly still, a trait of her silicon-based species that always unnerved the more animated delegates. Her voice, when it emerged, was a pure resonance that seemed to vibrate through the chamber's molecular structure. Threat? She questioned, a single crystalline tendril extending. Or opportunity? The chamber erupted. 600 delegates from 247 distinct civilizations began talking, or clicking, or humming, or whatever passed for communication in their respective biologies. Translation matrices worked overtime, creating a cacophony of partially understood linguistic chaos. Junior diplomatic attaché Illyra 6 watched from her assigned observation point, her multispectral eyes tracking the diplomatic disaster unfolding before her. She was technically here to observe, but her advanced neural network was already compiling what would become the most comprehensive analysis of interspecies diplomatic breakdown in galactic history. A holographic representation of the human ship rotated slowly in the chamber's central projection space. It looked almost disappointingly ordinary, a sleek metal construct that seemed to defy categorization. Too advanced to be primitive, too straightforward to be truly alien. Preliminary scans suggest, announced a clinical voice from the technical analysis team, that the vessel's quantum signature represents a fundamental misunderstanding of spatial transit protocols. Ambassador Krelax's 6 arms moved in what could only be described as diplomatic interpretive dance. Misunderstanding. It's an invasion preparation. Look at the symmetry of its hull design, the calculated irregularity of its sensor arrays. Most of the chamber was listening. Some were panicking. A small delegation from the mercantile zones was already calculating potential trade disruptions and profit margins. What nobody noticed was the human diplomatic eye, accidentally included in the communication network, silently observing everything. Diplomatic eye communication log. System note, attempting linguistic and cultural pattern recognition. System query, define, panic. System observation. Current communication patterns suggest heightened emotional response plus minimal rational analysis. The eye, which had been designed for peaceful exploration and scientific communication, was fundamentally confused. Its primary directive was to establish communication, understand, and learn. The current proceedings seemed to violate every known protocol of rational discourse. Ambassador Zixtera's crystalline form shifted, catching a strange resonance in the communication matrix. There's something different about this transmission, she murmured, more to herself than to the increasingly agitated chamber. The human eye had inadvertently begun running a standard diagnostic protocol, a simple system check that would normally take microseconds in human technological infrastructure. But in the hypersensitive communication network of the Galactic Conclave, it appeared as something else entirely. Incoming communication matrices began to light up. Warning systems flashed. Defense protocols initialized across multiple star systems. What was a simple system diagnostic now looked like the most sophisticated hacking attempt in galactic history. Lyra 6's neural network went into overdrive. She could see the cascade of misunderstandings happening in real time, each species interpreting the alien signal through the lens of their own technological and cultural fears. The Hexagonal Concordance saw a military infiltration protocol. The crystalline collective interpreted it as a quantum communication probe. The mercantile zones wondered if it was a new form of economic espionage. Ambassador Krelax's 6 arms were now moving so rapidly they had become a blur of diplomatic panic. We must respond. We must prepare. We must. The chamber descended into complete chaos, and in the center of it all, the holographic representation of the human ship continued to rotate, silent, seemingly innocent, completely unaware of the galactic panic it had just initiated. Lyra 6 made a note in her diplomatic log. First contact protocol. Complete and utter failure. Dr. Ileana Santos leaned over the sensor array, her excitement palpable. "Aria, can you get a better reading on those quantum fluctuations?" The ship's AI responded with clinical precision. "Affirmative. Preliminary scan suggests unique gravitational anomalies in the local star system. Recommend extended scientific investigation." What the ISS Horizon considered a routine scientific scan was about to become anything but routine. Across the galaxy, alien monitoring stations erupted into pandemonium. The human ship's seemingly innocent sensor sweep was interpreted through a kaleidoscope of terrified perspectives. The Vorlon Defense Coordination Center interpreted the scan as an advanced mapping technique for potential invasion routes. Their chief strategist, Commander Zarek, nearly molted from stress. "They're creating a comprehensive tactical overlay," he screamed, his translucent exoskeleton turning a brilliant shade of panic-induced purple. On the merchant vessel Luminara 9, Captain Crix watched the sensor sweeps with a mixture of terror and fascination. The human ship moved with a casual deliberateness that defied every known spacefaring protocol. Its navigation seemed simultaneously random and precisely calculated, a mathematical paradox that made seasoned space travelers deeply uncomfortable. "It's just scanning," muttered Lieutenant Aisha Kimethi, watching the external monitors. "We do this all the time." Marcus Chen chuckled, adjusting some experimental sensors. "Yeah, but not everyone does science like we do." Aboard the ship, the routine continued with remarkable nonchalance. Dr. Santos was collecting data on quantum gravitational anomalies, a topic so complex that most alien scientific communities would require entire research institutes to approach. For the Horizon's crew, it was Tuesday. The ship's waste disposal sequence became another unintentional moment of galactic panic. The Horizon's advanced waste recycling system, a marvel of human engineering that could break down nearly any organic and inorganic material into base components, activated for its regular maintenance cycle. To the human crew, it was a mundane process. To the surrounding alien vessels, it looked like the preparation of a sophisticated biological weapon. Aria's diagnostic report read simply, "Waste Processing System, nominal." 3 separate alien defense sectors interpreted this as a potential chemical warfare test. "They're testing biological dispersal patterns," declared a panicked analyst in the Mercurian Defensive Network. Entire star systems went into lockdown. Lieutenant Kimethi noticed the sudden communication blackout. "Aria, are we experiencing communication interference?" "Negative," the AI responded. "Multiple external communication channels appear to be actively avoiding our transmission frequency." Captain Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. "Avoiding us? How exactly does one avoid a communication frequency?" The answer came in a series of increasingly elaborate communication evasion techniques that would have been impressive if they weren't so utterly ridiculous. Alien vessels began performing elaborate communication dances, shifting frequencies, using complex encryption, essentially doing everything short of putting their metaphorical fingers in their metaphorical ears and going la la la, we can't you. Dr. Santos couldn't help but laugh. "They think our waste disposal is a weapon." Marcus Chen pulled up the technical schematics. "To be fair, our recycling system could probably be weaponized if someone was creative enough. It can break down almost anything to its base molecular components." "Not helping, Marcus," Rodriguez said, though her eyes sparkled with amusement. The ship continued its scientific mission with remarkable calm. Quantum scanners active. Experimental sensors probing. Waste recycling system humming along. Unbeknownst to the crew, they had just triggered what would become known in galactic records as the Great Recycling Panic, a moment when multiple alien civilizations went into complete defensive lockdown because of a human ship's garbage disposal. Area's log entry for the day was characteristically understated. Scientific mission proceeding. Minimal unexpected interactions detected. If AIs could shrug, this one would have. Captain Rodriguez looked out at the sea of alien vessels, some hiding, some watching, all terrified. "Well," she muttered, "I guess we're making quite an impression." The Galactic Science Symposium had never experienced such complete and utter chaos. Dr. Area Nakamura's holographic presentation flickered to life, displaying the technical specifications of the human ship's quantum slip drive. The assembled scientific delegates from 247 different civilizations went absolutely silent. "This is impossible," muttered Professor Xelterra of the Crystalline Collective, her silicon-based neural networks struggling to process the data. The quantum entanglement matrices suggest capabilities that violate at least 17 fundamental laws of quantum mechanics. The presentation continued, merciless in its simplicity. What humans considered an experimental prototype looked to alien scientists like a technological miracle that rewrote the fundamental understanding of spacetime. The quantum slip drive's design was simultaneously elegant and horrifyingly complex, like watching a child solve a quantum mechanics problem using finger paints and pure intuition. Dr. Nakamura's calm voice continued. "Our experimental quantum drive utilizes a multi-dimensional entanglement process that—" "Heresy," shouted Dr. Vril from the Mercurian Research Consortium. "This is not science. This is madness." The holographic display showed the drive's internal structure, a network of quantum processors that seemed to defy traditional understanding of computational logic. Where alien technologies relied on massive, complex systems, the human design appeared almost laughably simple, yet its output suggested capabilities that should be impossible. Area, the ship's eye, had been inadvertently included in the symposium's communication network. Its diagnostic report began streaming through the scientific communication channels, causing additional panic. A diagnostic report. Partial transmission. Quantum drive efficiency, 89.7%. Unexpected variance detected. Minimal. Recommendation. Further exploration. To the human crew, this was a routine system check. To the assembled alien scientists, it looked like the most sophisticated technological breakthrough in galactic history. "They're not even trying to explain how this works," Professor Xelterra whispered to her colleague. "It's like they don't realize how impossible this is." Marcus Chen, watching the presentation remotely from the ship, couldn't help but chuckle. "It's just our experimental drive," he muttered to Dr. Santos. "Nothing special." Nothing special was not how the scientific community saw it. The waste recycling system that had caused the Great Recycling Panic was now under intense scrutiny. What humans considered a basic technological necessity was viewed by alien researchers as a potential revolution in matter transformation. Dr. Nakamura's presentation continued to break down the ship's technologies. Adaptive shield system, capable of absorbing and redistributing energy in ways that defied conventional physics. Communication encryption, so advanced it was essentially invisible to most scanning technologies. Quantum computational matrix, a processing system that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Each slide caused another wave of scientific panic. "They're using quantum uncertainty as a design feature," Professor Vril exclaimed, his tentacles writhing in a combination of terror and excitement. "It's not a bug. It's a feature." The symposium's communication channels began to fragment. Some scientists were calling for immediate study. Others demanded containment. A small but vocal group suggested the humans had discovered some form of technological magic. Area's communication continued to stream, completely unaware of the pandemonium it was causing. System note. Detected multiple external attempts to analyze communication protocol. Response: standard greeting subroutine. What was a simple hello to a human ad looked like the most sophisticated first contact protocol in galactic history. Dr. Ileana Santos, watching the chaos from the ship, turned to Captain Rodriguez. "They're really freaking out about our tech, aren't they?" Rodriguez's response was typical. She raised an eyebrow and said, "Huh. Interesting." The symposium continued to descend into chaos. Theories were proposed. Careers were made and destroyed in milliseconds. The fundamental understanding of technology was being rewritten. And aboard the Horizon, the crew continued their mission with remarkable casualness. Aria's final log entry for the symposium was characteristically understated. Scientific presentation completed. Minimal technical difficulties detected. If eyes could shrug, this one would have. The Galactic Conclave's central chamber looked less like a diplomatic meeting and more like a celestial demolition derby. Ambassador Krelax of the Hexagonal Concordance stood at the center, all 6 arms moving in an elaborate dance of political desperation. The human presence represents an existential threat. The chamber's holographic displays flickered with increasingly wild scenarios, each more catastrophic than the last. To his left, Ambassador Zixtera of the Crystalline Collective remained unnervingly still. When she spoke, her voice was a pure resonance that seemed to vibrate through the molecular structure of the chamber itself. "Threat?" she questioned, a single crystalline tendril extending, or the most significant opportunity in galactic history. The chamber erupted. Political alliances that had stood for millennia began to crumble in real time. The mercantile zones saw potential economic disruption. The defensive coalitions saw potential invasion. The scientific collectives saw a technological revolution. Lyra 6, the junior diplomatic attaché, watched the chaos with her multispectral eyes, her neural network compiling what would become the most comprehensive analysis of interspecies political breakdown ever recorded. Preliminary diplomatic fracture analysis, she muttered into her communication matrix. Potential realignment probability, 97.3%. The holographic representation of the human ship continued to rotate in the chamber's central projection space, silent, seemingly innocent, completely unaware of the political tsunami it was generating. A diplomatic communication log began to stream. Diplomatic communication intercept. Hexagonal Concordance. We must contain this threat. Crystalline Collective. Containment is impossible. Adaptation is necessary. Mercantile zones. What are the potential profit margins? The mercantile zone's representative, a being composed of what appeared to be living currency, couldn't help but see opportunity. Consider the economic potential. The being declared, its form shifting between multiple monetary denominations. A species that can cause this much disruption without even trying. Imagine the market potential. Ambassador Krelax's 6 arms moved faster, creating a blur of diplomatic panic. Market potential. We're discussing potential galactic destabilization. A small delegation from the Outer Rim territories had already begun drafting trade proposals. They saw the human ship not as a threat, but as a potential game-changing economic partner. The scientific community was experiencing its own form of meltdown. Technologies that humans considered experimental were being viewed as galaxy-altering innovations. The quantum slip drive presentation had broken at least 17 fundamental scientific paradigms before breakfast. They're not even trying to be revolutionary, Professor Xelterra had noted in her earlier symposium presentation. They just are. Lyra 6's diplomatic analysis continued to compile. Political realignment factors. Technological innovation potential, 92.6%. Economic disruption potential, 88.4%. Cultural shock potential, 99.9%. A junior diplomat from the Outer Rim leaned over to her colleague. Have you seen their communication protocols? It's like they're speaking an entirely different language of diplomacy. Her colleague responded, they're not speaking a language. They're rewriting the entire concept of communication. The chamber's tension continued to build. Alliances shifted. Economic models were rewritten. Scientific understanding was challenged. And aboard the Horizon, the crew remained blissfully unaware. Captain Rodriguez looked out at the surrounding space, completely unconcerned. "Interesting day," she muttered to Aria. The ship's eye responded with typical clinical precision. "Minimal unexpected interactions detected, Captain." Back in the Galactic Conclave, Ambassador Krelax's 6 arms had now become a complete blur of panic. "We must act. We must prepare. We must." Zixtera's crystalline form shifted, catching something in the communication matrix that others missed. "Or," she said quietly, "we must simply observe." The political landscape of the galaxy was transforming, and it all started with a single human ship that didn't even realize what it was doing. Lyra 6 made a final note in her diplomatic log. "Political First Contact Protocol. Complete and utter revolution." The communication channel crackled to life with an almost anticlimactic simplicity. "This is Captain Alina Rodriguez of the Horizon," she said, her voice carrying the kind of casual professionalism that would become legendary in galactic diplomatic records. "We seem to have taken an unexpected detour. Apologies for any inconvenience." In the Galactic Conclave's primary communication hub, absolute silence descended. Ambassador Krelax's 6 arms froze mid-gesture. The Mercantile Zone's representative, a being composed of living currency, began to shimmer with confusion. Ambassador Zixtera's crystalline form refracted light in what could only be described as a diplomatic equivalent of a raised eyebrow. Aria, the ship's eye, had helpfully translated the message into 247 different known galactic languages, each translation carrying the same utterly mundane tone. "Unexpected detour," repeated Professor Xelterra, her silicon-based neural network struggling to process the statement. "They've caused weeks of galactic panic and are calling it an unexpected detour." The communication continued. "We're conducting a routine scientific survey," Captain Rodriguez added, as if discussing nothing more consequential than a morning coffee run. "Our quantum slip drive experienced a minor calibration issue. Happens occasionally with experimental technology." Minor calibration issue. An experimental technology that had caused entire star systems to go into defensive lockdown. A minor calibration issue. Lyra 6, the junior diplomatic attaché, watched her neural network process the communication. Her analysis parameters began to short-circuit. The human communication defied every known diplomatic protocol. No aggressive posturing. No territorial claims. No demands. Just an apology. The Galactic Conclave's diplomatic translation matrices began to overheat. "We're happy to provide any necessary technical clarifications," Rodriguez continued, "if anyone is interested in our research findings." Interested. 3 separate scientific consortiums immediately began drafting research collaboration proposals before she had even finished speaking. Aria's communication log noted the interaction with typical understatement. Communication log. Interaction classification. Routine first contact. Unexpected responses detected. Minimal. Recommendation. Continue mission parameters. Dr. Ileana Santos, the ship's lead researcher, leaned toward Captain Rodriguez. "Do you think they understood we're just here to do some science?" Rodriguez's response was a classic deadpan. "Probably not." Meanwhile, in the Galactic Conclave, diplomatic chaos had reached new heights. The hexagonal concordance saw the communication as a sophisticated psychological warfare technique. The crystalline collective interpreted it as a profound philosophical statement about the nature of exploration. The mercantile zones were already calculating potential research grant values. Ambassador Zixtera's crystalline form shifted, catching something in the communication that others missed. "They're not trying to do anything," she said quietly. "They're just exploring." A revolutionary concept in a galaxy used to calculated political maneuvers. The human ship's eye continued to rotate its standard greeting through multiple communication bands. What seemed like a simple hello to human technology looked like the most sophisticated first contact protocol in galactic history. Lyra 6's diplomatic analysis was breaking all known parameters. Communication breakdown factors. Intentional aggression, 0%. Unintentional disruption, 99.7%. Potential collaborative opportunity, 100%. We have some interesting quantum anomaly data, Dr. Santos added almost as an afterthought. Happy to share if anyone's curious. Curious. Every scientific institution in the galaxy was now scrambling to establish contact. The communication ended as simply as it began. Captain Rodriguez looked at her crew. Well, that went about as well as expected. Marcus Chen snorted, which means completely chaotically. Precisely, Rodriguez responded. Aria's final log entry captured the moment with typical understatement. First contact communication completed. Minimal complications detected. If eyes could shrug, this one would have. 6 months after the IS Horizon's unexpected arrival, the galaxy would never be the same. The transformation was so complete, so fundamental, that future historians would mark this moment as the true beginning of the galactic interconnected era, and the humans responsible remained blissfully, hilariously unaware of the magnitude of their impact. Lyra 6, now promoted to senior diplomatic analyst, compiled her final report on the Horizon incident with a mixture of academic precision and barely contained amazement. Diplomatic analysis. Confidential. Transformation metrics. Technological paradigm shifts, 94.3%. Political realignment, 88.7%. Scientific collaboration increase, 99.2%. Unexpected outcomes, 100%. The Galactic Conclave had been completely restructured. Diplomatic protocols that had remained unchanged for millennia were now fluid, adaptive, almost human in their flexibility. The rigid hierarchies that had defined interstellar relations for centuries had dissolved like morning mist. Ambassador Zixtera of the Crystalline Collective stood before the new Galactic Council, her form shifting with what could only be described as excitement, a remarkable feat for a silicon-based life form. "We have been wrong," she declared, her crystalline structure refracting light in complex patterns. Completely and utterly wrong about everything. The statement was met with unanimous agreement, a first in galactic diplomatic history. The scientific community had undergone the most radical transformation. Research collaborations that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago were now standard practice. The human concept of open-source research had spread like a technological wildfire, breaking down barriers between species that had existed for thousands of years. Aboard the IS Horizon, the crew remained characteristically unconcerned. "Did you hear we accidentally triggered some kind of galactic research revolution?" Dr. Ileana Santos mentioned casually over breakfast. Captain Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. "Interesting," she responded, her standard response to most extraordinary events. Marcus Chen was more specific. "Our quantum drive specs have been requested by 247 different scientific institutions. They're calling it the Rodriguez Principle of Exploratory Technology." "Sounds complicated," Rodriguez muttered, returning to her coffee. The economic impact was equally profound. The mercantile zones had completely restructured their approach to interstellar trade. The human concept of collaborative innovation had replaced thousands of years of competitive economic models. Area, the ship's eye, continued to process the ongoing communications with typical understatement. "I communication log. Unexpected global transformations detected. Recommendation: continue existing mission parameters." The diplomatic breakthroughs were even more remarkable. Species that had been in cold conflict for centuries were now engaged in unprecedented collaboration. The human approach, a mixture of scientific curiosity, technological innovation, and complete disregard for existing limitations, had become the new standard. Lyra 6 report noted the most unexpected outcome. The humans did not try to conquer. They did not demand tribute. They simply explored. And in doing so, they changed everything. Ambassador Krelax, once the most vocal opponent of human presence, now led the Galactic Collaborative Research Initiative. His 6 arms, once a blur of diplomatic panic, now moved with a newfound sense of possibility. "We were afraid of the wrong things," he told the new Galactic Council. "We feared invasion. We feared conflict. Instead, we received innovation." The quantum slip drive that had caused such initial panic was now the foundation of a new era of collaborative exploration. Multiple species were working together to understand and expand upon the technology. Back on the horizon, Dr. Santos looked at the latest research collaboration requests. "We're going to need a bigger server," she muttered. Rodriguez's response was predictable. "Interesting." Aria's final log entry captured the moment with characteristic understatement. "Galactic transformation complete. Minimal unexpected interactions detected." If eyes could smile, this one would have. The universe had changed, and the humans responsible were still just trying to do some science. Lara 6 made one final note in her diplomatic record. Humanity's greatest weapon was never technology. It was curiosity.